Ta-da!
Hello gamers, Matthew here from Grey Army Gaming in lovely Lund, Sweden. For today's episode of the Armory, we will be looking at some resin bits and terrain pieces from the company Spellcrow. Spellcrow is a fascinating company based out of Warsaw, Poland. It was initially conceived of in 2005 by two friends. Now excuse my horrible Polish pronunciation, let's see if we can get this right. By Piotr Pirjanowicz and Marek Rurash. Now in the years since its inception, Spellcrow has blossomed into the gaming market, guided by a growing team of employees and undergirded by the same love for gaming that was the reason that everything got started to begin with. Now before we take a look at the resin bits and the terrain, let's take a look at a bit of the background story to Spellcrow. The story of Spellcrow is one of passion, intrigue, deception, and perseverance. In 2005, two artist friends, Piotr and Marek, were working as subcontractors for various Western companies. Their primary tasks were to design and carve figurines. At the same time, these friends were also deeply immersed in the world of wargaming. And it was this immersion and the passion for miniature games that led them to begin to develop their own game system, the fantasy-based Umbra Tours. For the game to be marketable and successful, however, required that it had to possess its own line of figurines. Thus began Piotr and Marek's journey into the world of miniature casting. Finding a proficient founder for the casting work, however, proved to be far more difficult than initially imagined. For a year and a half, Piotr and Marek searched far and wide across all of Poland for someone who could help realize their vision. Yet, to no avail. Still, at the same time, these friends continue to come across high-quality counterfeits of Games Workshop models that were nearly indistinguishable from the originals. Somebody was behind this work, and he or she was extremely talented. But, given the nature of the work stealing intellectual property, buyers of the counterfeits were more than happy to leave this professional alone to work in obscurity in the shadows of the Polish gaming community. At this point, the legend becomes a little bit fuzzy, but something like the following occurred. Out of pure desperation, Piotr and Marek hit upon what was either a brilliant or an idiotic idea. Having traced down now some of these counterfeit figurines, they enticed, or you could even say they kidnapped the owner of the Games Workshop knockoffs and locked him, together with themselves, into the car. And with what was, one could imagine, not a small amount of trepidation, the friends made a simple demand. You're not getting out of this car until you reveal your source. As it turns out, the Foundryman was a professional who had no real or deep connections to gaming whatsoever. He produced many different kinds of pieces, some of which were reproductions of gaming miniatures that people had brought to him. Still, he was willing to work with Piotr and Marek with their gaming vision. After a short while, the friends began to leave their designs with the founder, and soon after that, they were able to hold in their hands for the very first time their own figurines. This was a joyful milestone, which, as Piotr puts it, was akin to the transformation of lead into gold. With the production piece of the puzzle now in place, Piotr and Marek now turned to marketing and distribution. Unfortunately, things in this area moved at a crawl. An initial attempt at online sales was rather lackluster, paired with logistical problems in getting appropriate packaging for their product. Although interest in the company was high, interest alone did not immediately translate into sales. After a good amount of marketing work and getting the Spellcrow name out, a British store finally placed a large order, which really began to help the company down the right track. With excitement, Piotr and Marek left their jobs, rented office space, and ordered new machines, all with the aim of becoming an independent foundry. This bubble of optimism, however, would eventually burst. As soon became clear, the man from whom the casting machines had been ordered had been deceiving Piotr and Marek for the better part of a year. In the end, the friends were left without machines and without the capital they had poured into their investment. New machines had to be ordered from Italy at a greater cost, and the money was quickly running out. In order to keep Spellcrow afloat and to bring in much needed cash, Piotr and Marek began to produce generic trinkets for clients around Warsaw. The first run was a batch of figurines of the Virgin Mary. Unfortunately, these did not sell very well. As the friends soon discovered, the tiny metal figurines proved simply too small for Catholic grandmothers and grandfathers who no longer possessed the sharp eyesight necessary to appreciate them. Producing larger figurines, however, was not yet a possibility. Instead, Spellcrow turned to the tourist market with the aim of producing memorabilia from Old Town Warsaw, such as small-scale reproductions of the Column of Zygmunt. Although vendors loved the quality and design of the figurines, the market was simply too small to sustain the struggling company. In 2010, Spellcrow began to produce Chopin miniatures for the 200th anniversary of the composer's birth. Although sales were initially promising, at the end of the Jubilee, the company was left with piles of unsold figurines. As a last-ditch effort, Spellcrow even tried its hand at making sports medals. This too, however, proved unsuccessful, with the venture barely clearing costs. Simply put, Piotr and Marek were up against the wall. Something needed to change. Piotr had had enough. It was time to return to what he knew best and what he loved most, wargaming. And in the following summer, this is precisely what he and Marek did. They began to design and to produce bits such as weapons, equipment, and various heads for various wargaming systems. Moreover, they entirely revamped their packaging, distribution, and customer service. Spellcrow was now moving in a new direction, a direction that aligned much more closely with Piotr and Marek's passion. And this new direction was also leading to success. More and more people began to notice the Spellcrow products on Facebook, with a growing buzz in the comments on the Spellcrow Facebook page. But most importantly, this time, the buzz translated into orders and sales. Spellcrow currently consists of two foundries, one metal and one resin, with their headquarters on the site of the Industrial Chemistry Research Institute of Warsaw. From this facility, Spellcrow produces over 10,000 items per month that are sold mostly outside of Poland. That is about 98% of them, primarily in the United States, Great Britain, Japan, and Australia, with orders also coming from Hong Kong and Malaysia. With their success, Spellcrow now has several permanent employees and works with individuals from Hungary, France, and Spain. Most importantly for Piotr and Marek, through their long journey of passion and perseverance, their family and friends have stood by them and provided them with the support that made it possible for their vision to become a reality. And because of this, we have today in Spellcrow a fantastic resource for the gaming community. Well, with this introduction now complete, we may go ahead and take a look at the products themselves. Here is just an overview of the pieces that we have from Spellcrow that we will be reviewing today and taking a look at. Various terrain pieces and also bits. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at each in turn. The first items we can look at are these small barrels. These are for the 28mm scale. You can see they are nicely carved. There's a lot of texture on them. We'll have to go ahead and cut them off here and trim them up. But these should look really good painted up. Like I said, 28mm, that'll be a little bit shorter than a normal figurine, a human figurine. So pretty good sized barrels.
Second, we have a set of boxes here, and they have nice texture on both sides, some handles on the end there. I made a bunch of these on my own out of just regular wooden blocks, but what I really like about these is you can paint them inside, outside, and you can have lids that you can then open up. You can actually put things inside. Maybe you want to hide a treasure or something in them. It'd be really fun for Mordheim games where you have an objective where you have to actually go looking for something. So these are really great. We'll go ahead and get those painted up. They'll probably look really good. And who knows, you could even magnetize the lids so they stay on the boxes and you can pop them off. All in all, good looking boxes for the 28mm. And for the last bits for terrain, we have these two beautiful ladders that are also nicely sculpted. You can even see the nail marks in there, but they are wonderful wood grains, so those will look really good when they're painted up. Good also for 28mm. These will be great for Mordheim, but you could also just throw them on any other piece of terrain that you're building. And now for some of the larger terrain pieces. This is a really beautiful piece here. What we have is a piece of stonework. Now you could use this as a courtyard, you could use it as a wall on a building, you could put several of them together. Many different purposes. A platform maybe if you have a Mordheim building that's kind of destroyed, but really nicely textured and detailed, individually carved stones. So I can imagine a bunch of these put together would be a really beautiful setup for your scenery. Next off, we have an old destroyed building. Spellcrow does a lot of really good stuff like this. They give you small little pieces that you can put together to make ruined buildings. And here you see how we, when we cut this out, we'll have one wall here. You can see here the point here where we connect this other wall here. We've got really nice old beat up stone and wood on one side. And the wooden here interior on the other. So this will look really good, just a small little corner piece that you can use to highlight your village or your city. So really nice little piece there. Along the same line now we have some more broken destroyed buildings. We'll cut them out here and put them together to make corner pieces. All these can fit together really nicely. And you've got little extra pieces that you can add to accentuate, to highlight the different broken areas. So once again, this is really good resin. If you can hear that, I'm not sure, but it's pretty solid stuff, and it should glue together really well, and it'll be really nice when it's painted up. And here's a really interesting piece that I like a lot. It is going to be something of a tree setup. So you're going to have to glue that down, and you've got different branches here that we can then attach to the tree. There's a piece here, there's another piece here. It'll give us this sort of old worn dead tree that could be used as a monument, as an objective marker. So once that gets all painted up, that will look beautiful. Now a similar piece is also going to be this one, which is another one of these dead trees. Also sort of gnarly look. There's a lot of good detail in there. You can see some holes and cracks. Just a really nicely sculpted piece. We'll give you a lot of options and possibilities if you want to paint that up. If you look really closely, you can see that there might even be some faces, intimations of faces in there, something like a haunted tree. Just a really beautiful piece of work. Speaking of monoliths or markers, objectives, here is a really great piece that was also sent along. It's a stone, sort of a single stone piece. If you look really closely, you can see that there are different leaves and branches down here, some different greenery down here, and then you have all these markings in here which designate this as something of a sacred stone perhaps. You could paint that up beautifully with maybe some green deep in there popping out of the stone. Really nice looking piece. I'm going to try to paint this one up and use it as an objective marker for the future battles. So really good looking monolith or stone, sacred stone, whatever you want to call it. And finally now we also got one of these small little pieces right here, a little house. This is for your, I'm guessing 10mm, maybe even 6mm scale. A really tiny house, but you can see there's some just incredible detail on there. Really nicely done. If you wanted to, you could use this for a scenery setup in 28mm, have it up on a hill in the distance so it looks like it's really far away. Or like I said, if you are using 10mm, 6mm games, this could be a really nice little house for you to have as part of your village. These are really cheap, so you should be able to buy a bunch of them and have a nice village setup before you know it.
Well, there you have it, folks. A brief showcase of just a few of the many products that Spellcrow has to offer. Now, I really like this company. I think it's got a great story of passion and perseverance. They have a lot of great products. The products, I think, are fairly reasonably priced. You get good quality resin and metal products. I would recommend that you check it out. Go and support a small wargaming company and help them out. Their website is www.spellcrow.com, and I will put the link in the description to this video as well. Well, thank you for joining us here today at Grey Army Gaming, where Grey can always play.